that makes us special. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. You know, what makes my family special and how you can kind of look at yourselves and your family's history and story as well and kind of see that we're special too. So my journey, I would not be here without these two. So the young man you see there is my father, Jose Molina, and the young lady you see there is my mother, Edith, from Edith's Pizza. So my parents grew up in El Salvador, late 70s, early 80s. Pretty crappy time there, I'm not gonna lie to you. So it was a civil war, a lot of death, a lot of destruction, not a great way to grow up. My mother, she was someone that at a young age was like, I'm not gonna stay before. You know, she grew up a farmer as well, and she was like, this is not it. This is not it for me. So with that, at 12 years old, she made the decision to say, Mom, Dad, I'm out of here. She went to move in with her teacher, and her teacher took her in and said, hey, you can work and live in my house, and I can help you out. You can go to school for free. So that gave her an opportunity to go to school, to make something for herself, and to really like get to that next level. So that was a big motivating factor for my mom to say, hey, already at 12 years old, at 12 years old, I'm going to be doing sandwiches. You know, like I wasn't thinking about what is my future going to be like. You know, so that was just a big moment for my mom at a young age to say, I'm ready for that next level. And so with that, you know, that motivated her to not only go through school, she went to high school, went to the private high school in El Salvador, was a cheerleader, softball captain, did a whole bunch of stuff. And then that ended up leading her to, you know, linking up with one of her older brothers in America, coming to America and, you know, really making something for herself. My father's story was a bit sadder than that. He, you know, growing up for him, he was at that prime age where they were from both sides. The militia and the guerrilla people were looking for young men to say, hey, here's a gun, you're going to start, you know, doing some stuff now. But my grandfather was like, we're not going to let that happen. I mean, literally, my dad would tell me stories about my grandfather waking him up and saying, yo, you got to run. And he would run out the back door and run out into like the jungle in El Salvador and be out there for like 3 days, hiding out so they wouldn't get him. And he would come back to the house a couple days later when they would be gone. And that's how his life was for a while. And he was trying to balance that, working on the farm, and also trying to do some stuff in school too. So, you know, it was really tough for him. My grandfather ended up saying, no, this is not, we can't keep doing this. So they ended up moving into the city. And my father, you know, when the young men there would become like in private school in the city of San Salvador, they didn't really mess with him as much. So he was able to get his education. He actually wanted to be a mathematician when he was in school. Damn, that's so boring. But he really wanted to. He had that passion to do that. So he became, you know, valedictorian of his high school from just literally a couple years before, running for his life. And from there, his sister unfortunately became really, really sick. She had leukemia. And he needed to make more money. And an opportunity for him, my grandfather actually was in the Marines of El Salvador. Did a lot of training with folks up in the U.S. So he had a connection to come up to the United States, and that allowed my father to come up to the United States. But he only had $20 in his pocket and a dream. Literally, that's the story he always tells growing up. He literally had $20 in his pocket and a dream of saying, what do I do now? So that young man, in this photo, my dad was like, I was 110 pounds at 18 years old. I mean, he's my size, and he's 110 pounds, and I guess the weight took that man away. But regardless of that, he faced adversity. He pushed through. He was resilient enough to not only find a job, you know, he was doing things with carpentry, putting windows up, you know, working everywhere. And he ended up finding the bakery. And Mr. Steve, the previous owner, you know, the guy from Juice, said, another immigrant family, you know, took my dad in and said, hey, we can show you the ropes, or he committed to it. He's like, I'll do anything and everything necessary to do it. So my dad, you know, went to the business, and you know, that allowed him to do something for my family. You know, it really, really paid off. I mean, my mom took the role of staying at home, and she raised myself, raised my brother. We didn't have much. I mean, when we first moved into our home that is still their home today, they didn't have enough money for boxes. We were moving in with black trash bags with all our stuff in it. The neighbors were looking at us like, these guys, you know? And funny enough, like moving, a couple years on, those people that were looking at us with a little bit of, not looking down was a little bit, became our big supporters as things went on. Because they knew the character of the family that we are. They saw us working hard in the house. They saw us being together as a family always. And being great to the neighbors. We were good to the neighbors, the good community. They see my brother and I being active members in school. And, with that, that was how our story really began. I would see my dad going to work. He was working 7 days a week. We would leave work in the morning, go to church with us, leave, come back, and go back to work. Like 7 days a week. That was the grind man had to be on. So, because of those sacrifices, we get to meet. So that's me, right there. So I've got a little trick myself. So I was born and raised in this area, so I was in Kensington, Maryland for pretty much my whole life. I went to Albert Einstein High School. I was an active member of a lot of things. I played cello. Is everybody in the orchestra here? Orchestra? No orchestra? That's great. A little bit? All right. Yeah. So I was a cellist. So I was a cellist in the orchestra, but I also was the captain of the football team. So those two things don't usually match up. So I'm going to be walking through school in a football jersey on, carrying my cello. People were like, is this guy awesome? But hey, I was able to balance those couple things. Also, my mom at this time was also working with children with special needs. So I would be doing that and also volunteering my time with my mother as well, working with some of those children. But, in those years, there was adversity that I faced as well. For me, I'm first generation, as you guys heard. And with that being said, my parents didn't know nothing about nothing, really. When I first started playing football, my mom was cheering for the wrong team the first 2 years. Really. It was so funny. Thankfully, by the time my brother was playing football, she got it under control. But yeah, the beginning was rough. And she didn't really understand why I wanted to do sports and why I wanted to do all these things. And I was like, hey, my friends are doing it. I want to try something new. I also grew up and I watched the Ravens win the Super Bowl, and I fell in love with Brady Lewis. So yeah, Ravens fans, come on now. And so that was something that I was like, I want to play football. So hey, football led me to a path that helped me get to college. But even though I put all my faith, I was like, I want to be a football player. I want to do this. Senior year game, played 2 games, high ankle sprain, I was good. It was bad. So what do? You think, okay, this is going to be my moment. This is going to be what I'm going to do, and something happens. Thankfully, it wasn't to the extremity of the things that my parents had to go through. But hey, I had to do something myself. So, what do? At that time, in my senior year, everyone's looking at, I know some of you seniors as well, are looking at FAFSA, you're looking at the common apps, and applying for schools, things like that. They were like, FAFSA, I was like, who's that? Common app where? I didn't know about these things. I had no one to tell me about, these things in life. My parents had no, secondary education in the United States. And I didn't have much friends that, also had those resources as well. So for me, I had to go myself and find these things on my own. And thankfully, at Einstein, we had a career center where a lady there did go to Dayton College, the school that I ended up going to eventually. And she helped me out to apply for these things. And that's what I utilized my time with when I was, injured. And, I also gave a little bit harder in school too, to really bump my GPA up and, give a little bit more in trouble as well. So, that helped me out a lot. Literally, I thought it was game over for me, week 2 of the season. By the end of the season, I had to play one more game, which was awesome. And after that, I won a scholarship for $40,000 right after that to go to college as well. So, look, man, sometimes those adversities are the things that have to happen to you for you to grow as well. So those things changed me who I am as a young man and propelled me to jump into college. And that's the first time my family went to college as well, ever. So I was really paving the way for my younger brother that was now going into high school at that time as well. So I go to college. It's McDaniel College up in Westminster, Maryland. An hour out from here, I decided to end up going to that school just because it wasn't too far away. They had a great education program, which I was very much interested in. And I got to play football. I had some buddies from the area that I played football with, like Blair High School, Whitman, Churchill, that we ended up going to school all together and we lived together. So that was a really great time. But, growing up in Montgomery County and then going up there, it was a big difference. I mean, you smell like cow manure up there. It's like very country music everywhere. I was like, where am I? But with that being said, I found my community as well, and I was able to share my culture with people. I'll be playing like my chapter music, I'll be playing like reggaeton music, show my friends what Daddy Yankee was, like I'll be bringing producers from home and tamales, show my friends like what that was, and they would come when I would go home, they would come and spend the night with me to like experience like what that was. So I got to not only like learn from them and their culture, but they were able to learn a little bit from me as well. And that was like really cool. And after school, I became a PE teacher actually. I worked in Montgomery County. I ended up leaving that and becoming a personal trainer for a bit. I had a gym as well. And then, from there, my parents were like, hey, we're about to buy a business. You want in? And I was like, hey, you know what? It's a one-on-one chance, let's do it. So I jumped into the family business. My brother took it to the next level. He went to Hamilton College. So that school is very, very tough academically to get into. He first went to, my brother at a young age, he was able to play football a lot sooner. So that was awesome for him. I would take him to camp to when he was, Little League. His partner when he was training was Chase Young. And of all people, I was a little Chase Young now when you're training already as a young kid. Wow, it was Coach Tan. And that was so cool to see them playing crab bowl, playing these national games. My little brother, man, that's so cool. And my mom was cheering for the right team at that point. So we're all good. So my brother had that opportunity. He ended up going to Dickinson College for one semester. And funny enough, one of my teammates was going for 1 year too. But he went there and said, I want more. I want to challenge myself even more. So he took that risk, jumped to Hamilton College, became an econ major, and to this day, he developed some wonderful relationships here. He ended up becoming really good friends with the principals or the president of the school. And the president helped him to a bakery twice a week. He lives around the area now. So that's just so cool that, that story comes back, that the relationship that he made in school and the connections that he's doing, brought him back. And in that photo on the far right side, you see that city there, that's El Salvador. So my brother also wanted to connect more with who we are as Latinos. So he went back to my motherland and, started building relationships more with my aunts, my uncles, and really bridging that gap that we lost so many years. So my mom and dad are now in contact with their siblings a lot more. We're talking to our cousins a lot more and being able to make an impact and say, hey, look, my parents made that jump, they faced adversity, they helped raise us, and what we're doing, you can do it too. So now we're not only inspiring, the people that we work with, but also, our family members as well, saying, yeah, you guys can do it too. So he actually just got married 2 weeks ago to a young lady that he met in El Salvador just a year ago. So love is out. Yeah, literally. So he's really happy for that. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and this young lady lived with her her whole life. And now to her, she was going to be my brother's, love of his life. We met her last summer. And they got married last month. So that just shows you, hey, if it's love, it's love. I believe it. So, but now it's all pressure to brother. So, I'm so young. All right, so moving forward a little bit. So how does it all come together? So my dad, when my brother and I were in middle school, or when I was in middle school, my brother was a bit younger, my dad actually did open his first Friends Unlimited in Ashland, Virginia. The commute, not that great. And honestly, what happened was that he would be leaving so early in the morning, we would be asleep, and coming back so late that we would still be asleep. So he never really got to see us, and my mom, for that year that he had opened it. So he said, you know what, we're going to close that door for now and come back to it later. Fast forward to 2019, that opportunity came once again. The previous owner, Steve, Mr. Steve, who was also like a grandfather to me, said, hey, Roberto, you were my guy for so many years. My father's also, they call him Roberto as well. He said, hey, it's your time. Do you want to buy the business? I can make a good deal for you. My dad said, it's time now, fellas. Let's do it. So my mom, myself, and my brother and dad, we all jumped in the family business together. My dad was the only with the early bakery experience. I mean, the bakery experience that I had, growing up, my dad would take me to the bakery as a punishment. Like, if I had bad grades, we made me clean every machine, wash the baseboard, sip flour for like hours. That was my experience with bakery growing up. But now, moving forward, we were able to really, enjoy it and say, hey, let's take this risk as a family and not only do something for us, let's build a legacy for the future. And, this is the legacy we're trying to do at Bread's Unlimited. So, it's family bakery. Day one, it was my mom and I from open to close for like the first 6 months. Just figuring out what it means to run a business. I wasn't a business guy, my mom wasn't from the business industry, but we had to learn it in real life, doing it every single day, which was kind of crazy to do. Every day we were changing, the style of how we did the business, rearranging the store, and we went through it over and over and over and over again. Eventually made it to a point where we did have success. When we bought the business in 2019, I don't know how old you guys were, that's probably young by then, but that's like pandemic time. That's when it first got started, 2019, 2020. So literally when we bought the business, my mom and dad were like, hey, we're about to sell the house. It really felt like it was like game over, honestly. But, hey, they were able to face adversity. My brother came back from school because he was, they sent all the kids home from COVID during college. And we would literally wake up in the morning and go deliver bread to people in the neighborhood every single day. For like the first 3 hours of the day, we were delivering donuts, bagels, muffins, whatever we could, delivering to people that were called in the day before in the neighborhood. Just to make sure that we were there for the people and that we would keep the lights on. But once we got through that tough time and we went back to like the normalcy of things, business was booming, man. Like, we had lines down the street, we were a staple in the community, we were winning accolades, winning awards, and it was just so great that the risk my parents took once again in life, getting out that comfort zone paid off, and my brother and I were getting to be a part of that too. So every day at the bakery, you see my mom there, you see all the products that we have. We do a lot of great stuff. We do donuts, we do humble breads, a lot of Jewish style items. This is the bakery was previous Jewish, we're going to keep that style. Everything we do, we get fresh ingredients in the morning. I mean, honestly, eating a donut's pretty easy. Making it, I gotta be there at midnight to get the donut started every day. So that's like the baker life. It's legit. I didn't believe it, but it's legit. You get there in the morning, the bakers first get there at midnight, cut open that bag of flour, and start the day. That's every day the baker. There's literally 2 hours from 10 p.m. to midnight are the only 2 hours when nothing's happening at the bakery. Other than that, we're moving. We're making bread, we're making donuts, frying donuts, making pastries, we're getting prep done for the next day. It's a show that never stops. And it's beautiful. We get to work with people that we love in our store, and the folks that work for us, they worked with my dad before, and he was in the business prior to taking it over. And he was able to, provide them a job that they love. And they love what they do. We tell folks they come into our store, what makes yourself so good? It's love. If you love what you do and you enjoy that, the energy's going to go be in the pocket as well. So we use high quality ingredients. We make stuff fresh every single day, and you guys are going to try this thing, I promise. So this is some examples of some of the stuff we do. There's a little case you see there. All the ladies in the back, they have some great skills, all moms, so they do like these fun decorated cookies. There's some challah bread up there, probably familiar with that as well. My dad also makes cakes too. So my dad does all the cakes from scratch every single day as well. So that makes a big difference. His ability as well. So it's so cool. It's really great stuff. Alright. So the legacy. Like I talked about earlier. So with the bakery, my dad really wanted to honor, Mr. Steve, the previous owner. Even a guy, that from Jewish descent, kept those traditions of it being like a Jewish style bakery. We were kind of skeptical, being like, what are you going to think about this something that we're going to now owning a Jewish bakery? What's going to happen? But thankfully, that challenge during the pandemic really showcased for us, these people are really going to uphold the values of this bakery and what makes this bakery special already. We just added our little touch to it as well to make it even better. So, hey, let's go over to my dad there, the gentleman before right next to my dad. This is previous owner, Mr. Steve. That's in probably the early 2000s there. That's challah bread. That's actually me and my daughter this past year, showcasing, what we've done with the business. So it's just so great that we get to continue this immigrant story, this legacy at this business, and get to put our touch to it as well, and to be able to do it as a family together. And it's just so great that we get to do this together and be able to give to the community something that we didn't realize that was needed for a while. And it's so cool. So Edith's Pizza. I talked earlier about my dad wanted that bakery in Ashland, having to give it up. When that happened, he kept all the bakery stuff and built pretty much the Dexter's laboratory of bakeries in my parents' basement, which is still there to this day. And that's where he started making pizzas. Our tradition, family, on Friday night, we would order pizza and watch a movie. We did it every Friday night, growing up, no matter what. So my dad was like, I'm sick and tired of Domino's pizza. I want to make my own. So he started making pizzas. And so we would my dad, my brother, my mom, and I would make pizzas together Friday nights and then watch a movie after. Our neighbors were like, what is that smell? They knocked on our door. They're like, what is that smell you guys got on over here? So they started also ordering from us. So we were making pizzas for our neighborhood as well. And that's kind of how the pizza concept started. So fast forward to when we're in the pandemic. My dad was like, hey, business is growing even though we're in the pandemic. Let's double down and open another business. Crazy. So he bet himself, put it on the line even more, and said, just because we have one business to make too. So there was a spot somewhere down that was open. It used to be a Pilates studio, but during COVID, personal training and Pilates, that was not it. People wanted to eat food. So my dad went to the landlord and said, I want to open a second bakery. They were like, no. Yeah, I want to open a pizzeria. Yes. So we ended up opening Edith's Pizza 2 doors down. And we wanted to name it after my mom to just certify her legacy and her being the rock of our story. So with her being the rock of our story, my mom and dad, they faced so much, and I told them, let's name it after my mom. My mom and dad, they came here, with a dream. They literally met in English class, together, and they became partners, and they've been partners ever since. That's how they became, a couple and fell in love and had happily ever after. So with that, we wanted to really honor them. And so with naming it Edith's Pizza, and doing fresh pizzas every day, we have bakers that know how to do good dough. They were able to make that happen. And so we started just doing pizzas, but we started growing. We're like, let's do more. Let's do more. Let's do steak and cheese. Let's do omelets. Let's do burritos. Let's do tacos. Let's do strongholds. Let's do calzones. All that good stuff. So now we are improving pizzeria. We have a lot of business now that's been really good. And now we have the opportunity to open a next store very, very soon. So that's really cool, man. So, just kind of wrapping up everything here, we thank you a lot. I think you guys are invited here today, just talking to you guys about the family business and everything we've had going on so far. We've been able to win some accolades by being Latino entrepreneurs, just by being business people as well in the community, giving back, working with schools, doing donations, hosting community events. And it's been really great to be able to not only have success, but to continue to help others as well. So, as we continue, we're growing. A lot of the work that you see that we do, we're doing ourselves. I'll be baking bread in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I'm polishing the floor or building a wall in the new store, or demolishing something, or that was in the pizzeria, we were jackhammering the floor and digging trenches that were 6 to 8 feet deep, to run the new lines. And that was our days. Every day was a different adventure. What is we going to do next? So a lot of those, a lot of the pride that we bring in, just comes in because we put the work in. That we not only open this business, but we built it with our own hands. And even with the new store, right here on the right side, we're going to be opening Edith's Pizza and Breads Unlimited under one roof in Kensington. Hopefully in the next few months, we're currently building that as well. So literally after this, I'm going to go and build a freezer. That's my project for today. So just to show you, every day is a different thing. So, we're able to grow the business and just just kind of full circle. I was born and raised in Kensington. So for me, we're able to not only make more opportunities for the people that work for us now, but just create more jobs and create more movement in our business so we can keep mentoring people and helping them have success in their lives to not just be employees for us, but for them having success as people and as family members as well. So today, we're not talking about a parent sacrifice. You guys have to sacrifice as well. To get to where you want to be, it ain't going to be an easy path. Never it is. You can believe it is, but it won't be. You're going to have to sacrifice. And then once you're in that position, you're going to have to be tough. You're going to have to get through some crap to get to where you want to be. When I'm sometimes getting that dirty grease trap, I don't want to do that. It sucks to do. It's stupid. But you got to do it because the end goal is you want to have a very clean facility and you want people to come back and see, wow, this place is so clean. I want to come back here. So you got to do some stuff and be resilient to a couple things along the way. And at the end of the day, I'm here to talk about heritage. For me, heritage is something very special. I think for myself, my family, we're Latinos, we're Salvadorian, and that is who our heritage is in the past. But I believe what's more important than the past is what you're building in the future. What is going to define your story? What is going to define you? That is your heritage. Every single person here is developing that for themselves, for their family, for the future, without even thinking about it. So the question I have for you is, what's yours going to be? All right, guys, thank you so much. And